Good Friday morning and happy November.
It is November.
Friday, November 3rd. We are so happy to have you listening in this morning and welcome to Off the Shelf.
Is today really the 3rd? Because I think I've already called it the 4th like 3 times.
No, it is the 3rd. Please don't push us further into November.
Sorry, I do not know.
I am
pre-coffee. I've only had 1 cup, y'all.
I'm not ready for November, period. And I'm certainly not ready for November to be like further along than it already is.
I have to take Halloween down and I'm really bummed.
Yeah. How was our wonderful guest this morning is Mr. Brent Carson.
Hi, good to be here.
Nice to have you
the
this
one,
morning.
The only, the man, the legend.
Yeah, I know.
Full of stories, and we're going to get to hear some of those in the second half of the show.
Some people say he's full of other things, but that's okay.
Baloney. They're full of baloney.
Yes.
Is what yeah. How was your Halloween, Molly?
Oh, it was fantastic. If you don't know, my husband Lloyd works at Grandview Heights Public Library. So I left our library in my shock costume. If you're a Nightmare Before Christmas fan, we were the little trick-or-treaters.
Lock, shock,
and I got
barrel.
there, and I guess he'd worn a different costume in the morning, but knew when I got there he had to match.
Oh,
so
good.
he was Beryl.
Nice.
And then at night when we got home, we had Penelope dressed up as Lock, Shock, and Barrel.
Yeah.
So she was Lock. And, 2 hours of getting to see little kids in costumes. It was fantastic.
Yes, in probably freezing in costumes with the snow and things like that.
It
Brent
was inside.
Right. Oh, that is nice. That is very nice. I was going to say, Brent, did you have a lot of kids in your neighborhood?
I did not. Our neighborhood where I'm sure they go to others.
That's how my first house was. We were like, oh, well, we'll go trick-or-treat in the Northwest neighborhood today and maybe Carson Farms next year.
I live in a condo, so I had 1 year I stayed at my own home, and one kid came to my door, gave him the whole bag.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was like,
Oh, wow.
You have earned this. And I think I had another large candy bar, and I was like, I'm just really glad. So he maybe only hit one house, but I think I completely made sure he had a full bucket.
I think you were the best house indeed. All right. Well, as we always start our show, we'll talk a little bit about some things that we've maybe been reading or watching or listening to lately. So, Molly, why don't you kick us off with something good?
Absolutely. And I do have a good one.
Nice.
So it was a little off-brand. You all know that I love the Halloween books at Halloween. But the next book that was on my queue was Hilderbrand's The Hotel Nantucket. And I'm like, you know what? It's getting cold out. I could use this beachy read. I get a couple chapters in, and there was a ghost.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, perfect. So I was all in. It was just what I needed. So it's a Hotel Nantucket. I think it's the newest book. I don't know if it was last year's book from Hilderbrand. But the story is darling. It is an old hotel that had like its glory days in the 1920s. But during those glory days, there was a fire that killed the chambermaid Grace Hadley. She was on the 4th floor for some reason in the attic. You'll learn more, but I'm not going to give too many spoilers.
Of course not.
And it's rumored that Grace has been haunting the hotel since. And Grace herself will confirm this. Oh. She really enjoys haunting the hotel. In fact, when teenagers broke in, she loved to do weird things on their phones, show up in mirrors. She really kind of enjoys her haunting life. She likes to keep things spicy. She has a good feeling for good people and bad people and what's going on. But the story isn't even completely surrounding Grace. She's there. She's kind of watching where we can't go otherwise. But they're bringing the Hotel Nantucket back. And they're reopening it as a luxury hotel in Nantucket. The main character, well, they're all characters, but Elizabeth Keaton has been helping run this massive, hugely successful gourmet restaurant with JJ, her boyfriend, who, of course, cheats on her.
Uh-oh.
She leaves the restaurant they started together. She goes to open this. She is the head of the Hotel Nantucket. She hires this cast and crew of characters to work the front desk, and she just prays this is going to be successful. They especially want to get a 5-key rating from the blogger about hotels. Mm-hmm. She's never given a 5-key rating. And it is completely Lisbeth's goal to get them there. And everybody she hires understands and gets behind the goal. All of them have secrets, though. From the Chad, who is a local who comes from a lot of money and made a big mistake we don't know about, to the head of housekeeping, who drives a way nicer car than you'd expect, and seems to have some of her own secrets going on. The owner who never comes to visit, and the house guest who shows up and pays for her suite for her and her 2 children all summer in cash.
Whoa.
The Hotel Nantucket, it's a fun read. If you are like me and you are feeling cold, it'll warm you up. It'll take you right to the beach, to the exquisite hotel. You can almost taste the food. You dive into the relationship. She wrote these characters in a way I could not walk away from this book.
That's great.
And I got a ghost in October. Go Ghosts.
That
great. Story gets good.
That is perfect timing.
Yes, it really was. I've never read Ellen Hilderbrand because clearly very popular author. And you know that I every time come on here and I'm like, I didn't want to like them. I'm going to read a lot more of these books.
Yeah. There's a reason. There's a reason why people really like those popular authors.
There is. And I am clearly one of them.
So a very nice review of the Hotel Nantucket. Well, Brent, I see that you have a book that you've published that we're going to talk about in the second half, but have you also been reading some other things lately?
Well, I've read a book not very long ago from it was from a college friend of a person I knew in college, I should say that. I went to small college. I went to Heidelberg University. And so I didn't know the person well, but another classmate gave me his book called One Game Wonder.
Ooh.
And it's more or less about their hometown up in upstate New York and up in the area near Jamestown, in that area. And it's just about local people in his area, particularly in sports. He's really into basketball, and he became a sports writer. And I am really into high school basketball myself.
Right.
And so I thought, wow. And so he doesn't know I read his book yet, but I've been reading it, and a lot of people may not find it as interesting, but I like that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and that has a lot to do with what we're going to talk about in the second half of the show, carrying on stories of local people.
True.
So I feel like maybe there was some inspiration there.
Maybe, yes.
What's the author's name again?
Ron Johnson.
Ron Johnson.
And the name of the book?
Is One Game Wonder.
Wonderful. You know, there was a basketball team, I don't know if you ever heard of them, out of Sims Valley, Ohio, back in probably the 1920s.
You mean the Waterloo Wonders?
The Waterloo Wonders.
Oh, I know that.
Do.
And I know they played in Delaware at one point.
They are legend back home.
I read that
Countyans
book.
listening, did you? Their story is something else. I mean, they were farm kids with nothing.
Yes.
From nowhere, who just took over Ohio without anybody seeing it coming. And my dad was an Ironton Fighting Tiger, so if you get into football,
oh no.
I know some of those local stories.
Well, we had a history of basketball of the high schools of Delaware County about 25 years ago maybe, and I invited one of the Waterloo Wonders, one of the last.
You did?
And he said, I'd like to come up to that. Then he called back. He said, I just can't do it. I'm still working tobacco right now.
That sounds correct.
And so I thought, wow.
There are some hard workers out there in Waterloo, and it's part of the Sims Valley local schools now, but it is a hardworking. My mom worked for him for years.
Okay.
Good little town. So, okay, we could talk for hours.
This is amazing.
One.
No, this is exactly this. If you know that you're going to get Brent Carson on the radio with you, you know you're going to have some great stories. So that's exactly
you're
what.
You're going to have stories. Don't add great.
Well, this morning, I don't have anything particularly that I have been reading, but there is an update on some things that you might be watching through the library. If you're familiar with the library's digital subscription that we have through Canopy, there were some updates this week. Canopy is a digital streaming service. It has kind of like your award-winning Cannes Festival type movies, documentaries.
When I get into my film festival documentary type feel, I can just ride Canopy. Like I can go and go and go in there.
If you want something that has some really great context for a holiday, Martin Luther King, they have hundreds, maybe not hundreds, but they have hundreds of minutes of Martin Luther King, biographies. They have lots of different things like that. So Canopy it had an update this week. So it used to be that you had 8 movies or shorts or whatever
Which is never enough for me.
that you could watch over the course of a month, and then it reset on the first of the month. When you're out, you're out. They've changed that now. It's a ticketing platform. And so now when you log into your account, it'll have a little update and it'll say, now we use tickets, and you'll have 24 tickets.
Wow.
And then you can see that each movie is rated at like a different ticket amount.
Nice.
So some might have 2, some might have 4. I haven't seen.
This is like the Weight Watchers of movies.
Points,
I
yeah.
got all my points here.
Exactly.
How do I want to spend them?
You also will have a different borrow time for each of your things that you are looking at. So, for example, I just pulled up The Imitation Game. That's one of the things that you can watch on Canopy. Of course, it stars Benedict Cumberbatch. And
can always watch him.
Exactly. And The Imitation Game is a 2-ticket movie, and you'll be able to watch it for 72 hours. So you'll have 72-hour access for The Imitation Game. You could also, have you heard of the TV show, The Librarians?
Are you kidding? I've watched every single one and their special movies.
Well, in case you have not, you could watch The Librarians.
You've never imagined Noah Wyle in a role like that. I love, this is everything I want you to think I do every day. I want you all to believe that is my job, because that really is.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
This one is a bit more, I guess you'll say, expensive in your tickets. You will have 5 tickets to watch episode 1, but then I'm not sure, maybe they go down if you want to binge, 2, 3, and 4. And you have access.
It's like Indiana Jones of Librarians. I'm sorry. I still want people, I want you all watching this.
To know The Librarians.
Yes.
Exactly. You can also see, let's see, Fiddler on the Roof. If you wanted to watch the version that was recorded, oh gosh, I forget. This is the 1971 version, because there was another version that was recorded that was all in Yiddish.
This is the one with Barbra Streisand, isn't it?
Oh,
I think
maybe.
this is Barbra Streisand's.
Yes.
So, she was amazing.
1971, Fiddler on the Roof. This one is a 4-ticket checkout, and
Worth
that's going to have
ticket.
48 hours access. So I encourage you, if you have never heard of Canopy, use your library card, download the app, connect your library card, and check it out. If you have used Canopy, log on and check out the new ticketing system.
Yeah.
I will also give a quick plug under the More side. You can, the More tab, you can go over to Canopy Kids. And Canopy Kids has videos that are a lot of times books told in a narrated and visual format.
From the Weston Woods production team. Weston Woods,
they do a great job.
They have for years, and so you may even find one of your old favorites still on there.
So there's things like Corduroy, there's things like The Pigeon from Mo Willems. And all of the content on the kids' side is totally 100% free, bingeable. You don't have to have tickets. You don't run out. You don't have to worry about, oh, gosh, my kids are going to breeze through my 24 tickets in a day. So the kids' side is nothing has been touched on the kids' side. So I'm going to take us to a break. We need plenty of time to talk to Mr. Carson on the other side of the break. And until then, stay tuned. Well, thank you so much for listening.
Gage does that really well.
He does. He does. Yeah, I know. We're just over here chatting in the in the studio, and Gage is like, guys, you got 10 seconds.
I know, and I was trying to distract Gage at the same time, too.
We are pros, okay?
Yes.
I'm so very excited to be here today. We have local teacher, author, historian, legend, Mr. Brent Carson in the studio with us. Round of applause.
Enough of that.
We're so happy. The reason why you're here with us this morning, I mean, we don't really need a reason, but is because next week, our friends of the library are hosting their annual meeting.
Which is always a blast.
Wednesday, November 8th. They are going to start with a little bit of business at the beginning at 6 o'clock. There's going to be an award ceremony. I might be getting a Library Staff of the Year award.
You might.
And then they're going to wrap that up by 6:30 and then have a short break, come back on the other side of the break. And Brent Carson and Dr. Rick Stranges from the Delaware Hayes High School are going to be the featured guests that evening.
Yes.
Now, tell us a little bit why they chose you as their guest. You might have something brewing.
God only knows what it shows. No, I felt quite honored to be asked, but I am writing a book, and a book about Delaware County. This year marks 50 years that I have been giving programs all over the county.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
awesome.
And to all kind of venues. And over the years, I keep picking up stories from people, and or corrected on the stories that I give.
Oh.
And,
Now I like that too.
yes, and so I was prodded at a basketball game last year by Rick Strangis, who sat by me the whole game, a high school ball game, and said, "You have to write a book." Well, I'd thought of it over the years, but I thought, I don't know the process. I don't know that I ever really will. And he said, "We'll write it together." And so every Friday, I agreed to come to his office at the high school, and I have to have my homework done.
That's right. That's right.
Feel like I'm in detention at the 2-hour session every Friday since February, beginning of February, and but he's so great to work with, and he's so easy to work with, and he does all the technical aspects of it, and all I do is read my stories into his laptop, and then we take it from there.
Oh, that's really wonderful.
Oh, I love that. So you get to do storytelling every Friday and remember your favorite things.
Well, yes. I mean, I do write them out, and I write them out, and then read them into his laptop, and but it's been a good time, and so we are publishing the book, and I'd had a couple of thoughts, and they came up. Then someone, I believe it was Susie Backus, who works with him, came up with the title "Carried Treasures."
Yes.
Stories that you sort of carry around with you and think back to, and so that's why we called it that. And so it's the stories of Delaware County that I have heard over the years. There are some other things in there too, but mostly that.
So Carried Treasures, Stories of Delaware County, Ohio. It's co-authored by Mr. Brent Carson and Dr. Rick Strangis.
Yes.
You are going to be, again, speaking at the Friends annual meeting next Wednesday. That's November 8th at about 6:30 p.m., but the meeting portion begins at 6 o'clock. Could you, well, first of all, we've been talking about where can we get the book?
Yes.
Oh, it would come out through Amazon, and so it would come out under the title, I believe, and also perhaps I could order it also under Brent Carson, either way.
And I imagine we're probably going to need a copy in the library, in the
I
local
think
history.
maybe a couple of
Yeah,
years.
in the local author and local history collection as well. So I imagine you'll be able to check it out through the library
Yes.
once we get our hands on
I
a
know I'm
finalized
gonna
copy.
I love my
Oh,
little
my.
Ohio stories. I love
Right.
the little stories all over the state. People don't realize how cool Ohio is. And Delaware, I cannot wait to learn some new secrets.
So why don't you tell us a secret or two?
Oh, well, I could. Of course, one of the chapters is I have one on pets, the pets of Delaware County, and stories with pets. And I think of one of having been a former teacher, one who I taught with for many years, and I've known most of my life. But she is a little girl, grew up in Delaware, went to the same grade school that I went to, a little ahead of me, but there was a principal by the name of Miss Boardman that was sort of iconic to the community, and tall, thin, erect, and no nonsense. Way back in that day, when it
You
was
needed some
spare the rod
no-nonsense.
and spoil the child.
Yeah.
and,
Painting a beautiful image. Yes.
oh my word! And she would
What
have
would
you
she think
line
of
up
that
in
arts
2
part now?
lines as you entered that building every morning. And she'd stand at the top of the steps. We're allowed to touch the railings. Stay away from the railings and walk straight up those steps.
Oh gosh.
And,
Don't trip.
and sometimes she had her paddle at her side. But anyway, on one day, Sue's little dog had been gone from home. They hadn't been able to find their dog. And it was a little dog, and there it was. It came running up when she was just about to get in line. She panicked. She was far enough to the school that she knew she couldn't take it home. And yet, because she'd be late, she didn't dare be late. She didn't want little JoJo running around and not being found again, so she stuck it under her sweater. And kept edging back to the end of the line And finally, she got to the top step, and there was Miss Boardman, leaning over with her hands on her hips, saying to her, "Why, Susie, what have we here?" And she was by now sobbing, and she explained it. And so Miss Boardman takes her little dog and says, "Well, how about if I keep it in my office today, and then you can pick it up at the end of the day?" And she very reluctantly handed it to her, but she worried about it all day.
I bet she did.
She thought, as a third grader, what's going on in there? Is she beating it with that paddle?
Right. Of course, because she's heartless, a
Oh,
heartless
no.
woman.
Heartless.
No.
Yes. And at the end of the day, she went back, and there it was sitting on the sick cot.
Oh.
And with a little bowl of treats and a little bowl of water down on the floor. And she said it changed my whole attitude. And it was one of my inspirations into going into teaching is that we sometimes prejudge people,
Yes.
Mhm.
and that we need to remember those lessons in life.
Oh, that's a great story.
Aw. What a legacy to leave the community too. I love that.
And so you mentioned her name, Miss Boardman, and you mentioned, Molly, about the
Boardman
park.
Arts Park.
Are they
Yes.
connected?
Oh, yes, that's where the school stood, and of course that was who it was named after. The
Okay.
Boardman, Miss Boardman, this Boardman School at one point. And,
Oh, it was Boardman School at one
yes.
point. Okay.
Yes, and so that's how that came about.
It is a lovely park these days.
Yes.
Yes.
I wonder
It's
if
a
it
fun place.
would fit Miss Boardman's
yeah.
judginess now.
I feel like we need to go and just walk in, a line, get a few friends, just do that in honor of her. Just
Yes.
walk 2 by 2, Madeline style,
Oh, my.
That's wonderful.
This is what I do for fun
Yes.
on the weekends, it seems.
What else, Brent? We have time for about one more story.
Oh, well, let's see here. How about I think of schools. I did a lot on the one-room schools, and I think of the teacher who, in her 90s, we had a history club at our school for years. Just met after school, weekends in the summer, all just about local history, and the school's history, the county's history, and so forth. And we went and interviewed an elderly lady who was in her a little over 95, and she was at a senior center, and took 2 students who were 7th graders, and she talked of teaching in a one-room school, and she wouldn't tell us the name of it, but it was in Delaware County. She said, "I just can't tell you the name." She knew the name, but she said, "I had a bully in my class." And she said, and I was only 17 years old as the teacher.
Wow.
17, she said 17 or 18. And she said, and the boy was older than I was. And that he picked on me and he picked on the kids. And she said, I couldn't control the boy. And so one day I found a plan. I took a rope with me to school and a gag for his mouth. And at lunchtime, I told every kid in the room, except for him, of course, what the plan was. And when we went back in, sure enough, he sat down and began to pull the hair of the person in front of him. She gave the signal, and they jumped him.
Oh, my gosh.
And they held him to his chair and tied him and gagged him and tied his hands behind his back and his legs so he couldn't move. And then she told the students sitting closest to this window, look down the road if you see anybody coming in a wagon or anything, because there were horses and wagons. And she said, if you see anybody, let me know, and I'll go out and see if I can get some help.
Oh.
And sure enough, one came. She goes out. She has him. They said, you guard him, and I'll go out and talk to this person. She goes out and explains, and the person who is riding the wagon, there were 2 people in the front of this horse and wagon. One was the boy's father.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
He was the driver. The other man sitting beside him, the superintendent of schools. And they were not coming to the school. They were going somewhere else. But they got off and they came in, and she said, I still can picture them walking through that door and taking off their hats and slightly bowing to my class, and then apologizing to my class for the behavior of that boy.
Very
And
different
then the
times.
superintendent said, "May I borrow the chair? Well, I'll bring it back." And they then together lifted the boy, still tied and gagged, carried him to the wagon, set him in the back, still tied and gagged, and rode away. And she said, "I never saw that boy again."
Oh, no.
Oh, wow.
And she kept saying to my two students who were there to interview her, "What should I have done? I just couldn't control that boy. What should I have done?"
Well, she came
Still
up with a
begging
plan.
after 80 years. She's still begging.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow. I
That-
could do this all day, by the way.
Almost.
Those are very different times. Guys, you have
Yeah.
been listening to Brent Carson telling stories from Carried Treasures, Stories of Delaware County, Ohio. If you want to hear more stories, if
Which
you
you
could
do.
go on and on. Next week, Wednesday, November 8th, you're going to want to go to the Friends annual meeting where you'll hear from Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Carson and Dr. Stranges. You'll want to get their book on Amazon, and then when we get a copy, we're going to have it in the library for you.
I can tell you also that the following week, they decided to make this year's annual meeting for the Delaware County Historical Society an evening with Brent Carson.
Oh my!
Oh, that's
Look at
fantastic.
you, man of the
Oh,
month.
I
my
know.
word.
All right, well, check it out. Delaware County Historical Society, Friends of the Library. So many opportunities to hear from Mr. Carson. Thank you for being our guest
Thank
this
you
morning.
Yes.
that's kind of you to invite me.
Oh, this was
Good to be here.
wonderful.
All right, thank you, Molly, for being our co-host.
Always happy, and
And
thank you.
Gage, always thank you for running the board. Until next week, we'll see you in the stacks.